Hey everybody, I'm Steve Ilardi, and I'm a psychologist, clinical researcher, author, podcaster, MBA consultant. I forgot to mention that last time. In fact, I may never have
I
mentioned.
just
I don't
love
know.
the podcaster. I love that that's part of your like CV now. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, you know what? I'm so proud of that because it's like the latest edition, and it's super exciting to be a part of this. Anyway, more than anything, if you've listened to us before, you know what I'm going to say. More than anything, I'm a fellow traveler, and I'm honored to be with you again today. We got a lot of exciting content to share with you today about brain fats, about fatty acids.
Delicious. Ain't no fat like a brain fat. That's what I always say.
You
My
know,
life goal here is actually to get to the point where you mention podcaster first. Like it's the first thing on your resume. Because, you've got like a star-studded, shiny badges all over your resume. And I'm like, I just want the podcasting to be the absolute crown jewel eventually. But today, this episode, we're kicking off a new series called The Essentials, which is basically where we're taking a look at what we believe are the most important tools to have in your mental health toolkit, something we talk about a lot in the show. These are basically the core, absolute handful of things that everybody should be doing to treat, prevent, and manage just about any mental disorder you or a loved one may be experiencing. Today, we are talking about one of Steve's favorite topics in the whole wide world. If you've been listening to us on Spotify or checking us out on YouTube here, you'll know that we talk about omega-3 a lot. And we're finally doing the dedicated episode on it. We're talking all about the therapeutic effects, I would say borderline magical effects of omega-3. My words, not his. And
your
Steve
words,
here,
not mine.
yeah, Steve has promised here to keep this as short and sweet as his professor brain possibly can handle. And so I'm not going to get in his way. I'm going to kick us off, Steve, by saying, sell it to us. Why should we care about omega-3 as intrepid mental health adventurers? What gives?
Yeah. So, okay, let's start with the most important thing, which is our brains are mostly made out of fat. That's the raw ingredient for brain tissue. 60% roughly of the brain by dry weight is fat. And most of the fat that's in the brain, the body knows how to make. So basically, it can start with any raw materials from whatever we eat, and it can make the fats that we need for proper function and for proper structure. The problem is there are two big families of fat that the body can't make, and that's why we call them essential. So if you ever hear somebody say, oh, this is an essential nutrient, what they mean is you've got to get it from your diet. There's no way that your body can make it. So if you hear essential amino acid, essential fat, whatever. Okay, so omega-3s, omega-6s, those are the two classes of essential fats. And they're both crucial. We need them both. They have very complementary roles in the body and in the brain. They regulate lots of different hormonal axes in the body and the brain. And they really play the pivotal role in regulating inflammation. And we've talked a lot about inflammation. Why? Because it has such crucial impact on our mental well-being. Inflammation has a bad rap for obvious reasons, because most Americans, most people in the Western world have too much inflammation. But there's also such a thing as too little inflammation. And so, we'll talk about that. It's all about finding the healthy balance. And omega-3s and omega-6s help us keep the balance that we need. And unfortunately, most of us are eating way too little omega-3. The result is toxic inflammation.
Okay, so I feel like we should probably do that classic thing where it's like, to explain how important something is, you should give the opposite to it. And in my head, like, we've already talked about omega-6s, and I know from your book and from some of the other episodes that we've done that actually that's a really interesting thing to explore. So I know this is all about omega-3, but like, give us a little bit on omega-6 to kind of help paint the wider picture and set the context for what omega-3 is and why it's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, omega-6s, we need them. They're crucial. The problem is we just get too many of them. So let's back up a step and ask what I think is an important question. Where do omega-3s and omega-6s come from? Like, if we just want to find them in the wild, like where are they? Well, omega-3s are primarily made by grasses and green leafy plants and algae. So that's where they're manufactured in the ecosystem. They're made by green leafy plants, by a few other kinds of plants, like they're found in to some degree in some nuts like walnuts. some seeds like chia seeds and flax seeds, but for the most part, green leafy things. And then the animals that eat them. So think about like in the old days, in the before, I was going to say in the before times, but the way before times. So if we go back a century or two, when most of our livestock, most of the animals that people consume were free range. So they're out eating grasses and by the way, insects, and insects eat leaves and grasses. So basically,
Circle of life's going on here.
exactly.
It's like the cows get it from the grass, we get it from the cows. Okay, I get
Exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of startling, I think, for a lot of people in the 21st century to think about this. But like 150 years ago, if you were lucky enough to have steak on your plate, like that steak would be chock full of omega-3s, and which would have anti-inflammatory benefit. Now, omega-6s come from most seeds, so seed oil and grains, and the animals that eat them. So in the modern food supply, why are we so awash in a sea of omega-6s? Because, well, first of all of our all 90+% of our animal livestock supply and even, by the way, farm raised fish are grain fed. They're primarily corn fed, grain fed. And so I know you can't see Hugh shaking his head here, but you know what kills me? This is just my own little pet peeve. Is you will see now when you're in the supermarket buying salmon, you think, okay, salmon, it's a ocean cold water fish, ocean raised. You'll see labeled on the salmon, ocean raised salmon or ocean caught salmon. And these food producers, big food, will.
You better be careful. Big food sending their lawyers our way right now. Forget the lawyers. The hit squad has just been sent my location. They're coming.
They're on the way. You know what? I say bring it. So big food is out there, and they've got technically in the ocean these massive netted pens where they are farm raising salmon. It's technically in the ocean. I mean, it's right on the shore, but it's kind of technically sort of ocean adjacent. And they've got these, very, very, very swollen schools of salmon that are penned in and grain fed. And then to make it even better, infused with algicide and all kinds of really strong chemicals to prevent the kinds of infections that salmon get when they're kept in these very unnatural situations. And so, the unwitting consumer goes to the supermarket and they're like, oh, ocean raised salmon, it's health food. It's going to be great for me.
That's me. I'm going there and it's like a little bit more expensive. I'm like, okay, good. I'm going to get this because it's got omega-3 in it. That's what I think.
Exactly.
I'm like, oh, this is the good stuff. I got to splash out on this. And little did I know that they're actually from swollen school. I pictured all these absolutely ripped salmons.
They are in fact quite ripped, but not in the way that you want. And so, okay, our meat supply, including most of the fish that are now consumed, unless it says unless it says wild ocean caught.
Gotcha. Good. I like that.
Yeah. Then assume that most of the fish that you eat. Now, by the way, there are exceptions. Sardines and mackerel are so tiny that they're generally caught out, free range, as it were, in the ocean. They feed on algae, so they're a great source of omega-3s. Also, of course, most processed food is processed with seed oil and vegetable oil, and so
we're talking like sunflower, canola, rapeseed oil.
Rapeseed oil is actually a little bit of an exception. As I mentioned, there are some seeds that are pretty good sources of one type of omega-3. And that would be one exception. Here in the States, we call it flaxseed oil. But,
good. Because actually, I have a bottle and I've been avoiding it because I thought this is veggie oil.
Yeah, no, you're okay. Yes. But okay, so at least in most of the industrialized world, our processed foods, our fast foods, anything that comes in a box or a package in a supermarket probably has a lot of omega-6s. So here's the deal. The average hunter-gatherer, I know we refer back to the fabled hunter-gatherer Pleistocene environment. Why? Because that was the crucible within which our bodies, brains, genes were forged primarily, that we're very well adapted to. It has been pretty well documented that the average hunter-gatherer was getting a roughly 1-to-1 ratio of omega-3s and omega-6s in their diet. They are getting omega-6s. Like I said, we need them. They're getting a lot of omega-3s. And everything was in balance because the ratio of omega-3s and omega-6s determine the level of inflammation in the brain and the body. And as we've mentioned several times on the show before, the inflamed brain typically is a distressed brain. The inflamed brain is often a depressed brain, an anxious brain, a sleep-deprived, insomniac brain, an attention-addled ADHD sort of brain. And so if we have a lot more omega-6s than omega-3s, then we're going to have inflammation, and that's going to push us into this realm of potential mental illness. Now, I've been saving this. This is, by the way.
Are you about to drop a nugget? I can see you. You always get excited. You do this thing now. I notice it now because we do video. Like you just like lean forward slightly, and you like so your energy just cranks up just a little bit. I'm like, here it comes.
Here we go, folks. That's hilarious. Yeah, I do. I definitely do that. Our ancestors thrived on a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-6s to omega-3s. If you go back 150 years, even 120 years, the average American, the average European is estimated to have gotten roughly a 4-to-1 ratio. So a lot more omega-6s than omega-3s. But, there's a high level of tolerance in the human body. I mean, our ancestors, there's no such thing as the, quote, hunter-gatherer diet. Hunter-gatherers resided in wildly varying ecosystems all over the world. Their diets varied, just like they do still today, by the way. The Hadza diet in Northern Africa, North Central Africa, is very different from, say, the Yanomamo diet in the Amazon basin, different from the Kaluli diet in Papua New Guinea. But we can go to 4-to-1 is okay. 4-to-1 omega-6, omega-3, our brains, bodies do okay. The average American diet is now 17-to-1. I'll say it again.
No.
The ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 is 17-to-1. And so it should not surprise us that we have an epidemic of inflammatory illness throughout the industrialized, modernized, westernized world. Why? In part because omega-6s are the building block for inflammatory hormones. Omega-3s are the building block for anti-inflammatory hormones. And we're out of balance in what we eat. And so we're out of balance in the hormones that the body makes. And it's a real problem because, again, the inflamed brain is a brain that is not operating as we need it to. And it's going to push us in the direction of greater mental illness.
Wow. So just to recap, absolute gold standard is a ratio of 1-to-1 omega-3 and omega-6. You're doing all right. And you're living a pretty good life if you're at a 4-to-1. But the average American diet is 17-to-1.
17-to-1.
And the reason why that matters is because the higher the ratio is, the more likely you are to have a lot of information in your body. And the more information you have in your body and your brain, insane on the inflamed brain causes things like depression and stress and insomnia and anxiety and ADHD, and the list goes on and on and on.
Did you just drop a hip-hop reference?
I tried to. Did you catch that? I almost stumbled over it. I was like, God, my brain is trying to computate how to actually say this.
I heard faint echoes of insane in the membrane, insane in the...
So our first ever mental health rap battle hip hop cover is going to be called Inflamed on the Membrane. And it's going to be us battle rapping against Big Food, talking all about the omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. And throw your sunflower oil away, start buying grass-fed beef. We're going to go in hard.
This has epic potential. The mind really reels. Okay. So let's think about this for a second. Why is inflammation bad? Hugh, why is inflammation? I've been talking as if everybody knows. Like, obviously inflammation, at least at a high level, not so great for us. So what? Hugh, this, by the way, this is your oral exam. Why? Why
You're throwing it to me?
I am throwing it to you.
Can I like avoid eye contact and like play on my phone so you don't ask
You
me
can,
or something?
you can, yeah. So what is the deal with inflammation? By the way, I'm calling an audible, folks. We did not rehearse this at all.
Dude, we don't rehearse anything.
There.
That's the first thing I want to say. Okay, inflammation. Inflammation is a natural response in your body to, say, disease or
Yes.
injury.
Yes.
So it will like form I always think back to, remember the first few episodes I had a broken nose? So I broke my nose and then my nose started to swell up and get all puffy. That's a form of inflammation to kind of protect, like it's a protective barrier or shield to keep my fragile little nose from getting any more banged up. When your brain is inflamed, I don't know if this is actually happening, but in my head, like it also kind of like swells up. It's running slow. It's not doing what it's supposed to because it's trying to divert its energy and attention to like curing whatever's happening. The problem with chronic inflammation is there's nothing really to cure. It's like your body starts fighting against itself. So there's no real end goal. And the result can be things like depression and, all the other stuff we mentioned, a lot of other mental disorders, even ADHD. I think I remember omega-3 was playing a role. So there you go. There's my kind of off the cuff.
That was beautiful. I'm so happy. A plus for you today. Hugh,
Is
that
it
was
not
amazing.
just delightful to watch your baby bird start to fly?
My heart is full today, ladies and gentlemen. As Hugh said, I mean, inflammation is the body's reaction to tissue damage or to injury or infection, right? So when we're assaulted, if you have a splinter, to me, that's sort of one of the prototypes. You get a splinter in your finger and it gets inflamed, A, because you got a little bit of damage that you got to heal, and B, because you want to snuff out any of the pathogens that hitched a ride into your body on that little piece of wood. And so when your brain is inflamed, basically it's in a state where your immune system, which is the driver of inflammation, is saying, it may be infected or it's damaged, and we need to just basically rush in with all kinds of emergency crew, put up a scaffolding and do all kinds of repair work. Well, guess what? Most of the time, your brain doesn't need all that repair work, and at a certain high level,
I just had a picture of like a whole scaffolding going up to like change a light bulb.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And so here's a bottom line: when the brain is in this state of inflammation, it is very heavily stressed, and as we've mentioned many times before, the runaway stress response is such a feature of the modern world, a toxic feature of the modern world. And there are many, many different things that drive this runaway stress response, which, by the way, in turn is super toxic and can lead to depression and insomnia and anxiety. But inflammation is one of those silent, hidden drivers that most people are not aware of. They're not aware of the fact that just eating the typical American diet or the typical British diet or the just typical modern
sad.
affluent,
I love sad.
Yeah,
Standard American diet. That tells you everything you need to know.
As an American, it's often kind of embarrassing and alarming to think of cultural hegemony, to think of all the ways in which many parts of the world, for whatever set of reasons, want to imitate and copy what we're doing.
You've made it whenever you stop eating wild caught grass-fed beef and start eating McDonald's instead. That's how you know you're living your best
you've arrived.
That's your metric of success. Actually, one thing I did want to ask you was, so you mentioned like chia seeds earlier, and this is where I start to get a little bit sketchy, because as far as I'm aware, like I was loading up heavy on like walnuts and chia seeds for a while because I was like, omega-3, let's go. And then I kind of realized like, there's different types of omega-3, and that type is not necessarily the most effective. So what are the different types, and which one should we be really focusing on? Because like this is the essentials series. I don't have time to like be worrying about the non-essentials. Just give me what I need to do and I'll do it.
Yeah. So there are three major varieties, molecular forms or shapes, and I don't want to put our listeners to sleep here, but it's kind of important. So omega-3 comes in three flavors, as it were. There's there or three molecular. Yeah, I know. All right, forget it.
That was like something I would say. I love that, man. I'm like a bad influence on you. I can see you now, doing like infomercials where you're like, what flavor of omega-3 do you want?
All right.
Sorry, keep going. No, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Omega-3s come in three primary molecular forms, molecular structures. There's the short, the medium, and the long. The short we call ALA. That's the one that you get from seeds. Okay. So if you're by the way, if you're plant-based in your diet, if you're a vegan, vegetarian, then you're going to have to get most of your omega-3 in this form. It's called ALA, and you get it most efficiently, I would say, from things like flax seeds, chia seeds, and so forth. Now, the good news is, well, wait, actually, stick a pin in that. Okay, so that's the short one. The one that is the most psychoactive, the form of omega-3.
That you're stone cold hustling there. I love that pin. Keep that coming, man. EPA, right. Let's go.
EPA. Okay, folks. As I would say if I were in class right now, I'd be like, okay, you may want to wake up right now and get your pen out and put this in your notes because this is going to be on the exam. Omega-3, the form that acts like a drug in the brain is called EPA. If you're keeping score at home, if you want to look it up, it stands for eicosapentaenoic acid, which is a mouthful. EPA will work just fine among friends. And EPA is the medium length form of omega-3, and it is the one that acts like a powerful psychiatric drug in the brain. It has antidepressant effects, it has anti-anxiety effects, it has anti-insomnia effects, it has anti-ADHD effects, it has antipsychotic effects. They're mild. I don't want to build up false expectancies. It's not going to cure schizophrenia, but it is modestly antipsychotic. It is powerfully psychoactive. And this form of omega-3 we primarily get from animals that eat grasses and green leafy plants and algae. And it turns out algae is a massively efficient producer of EPA.
It's good news for the plant-based folks. That's awesome.
Yeah. So the very best source of EPA for most of us will be, at least if we're supplementing, if we want to get a very high psychoactive dose, if we're battling acute depression, we want to get it probably from fish oil, from really high quality fish oil. It's a food source. It's a natural. It's lightly processed, but in a way that really preserves our body's ability to use it and to implement it, both in terms of some of our brain structure. And what I mean by that is the fatty membrane lining on our brain cells. And then more importantly, like a drug, to regulate the function of those brain cells, how they fire, how efficiently, and so forth. So it even affects brain chemicals that everybody knows about, like serotonin and dopamine and so forth.
So humor me here, okay? Because this is not the way I thought this was going to go. I had it all mapped out in my head as you were speaking. I thought that like the longer one was going to be the best one.
The longer one is the best one if you're a baby. If you're, yeah. So the developing brain. So here's the deal. The long one, we call it DHA, and that is found in abundance in breast milk. And why? Because the baby's developing brain and the retina in the eye, which, by the way, to a neuroscientist, the retina of the eye is like an outpost of the brain. It's really brain tissue. And so the developing brain needs DHA as the main building block, or one of the main critical building blocks of developing brain tissue. And as I think everybody knows, baby and infant brains are very, very hungry because they're growing very, very rapidly. And formula makers, by the way, a colleague of mine at University of Kansas, a guy named John Colombo, actually did some of the really important work that influenced formula makers, baby formula makers like Nestle and others, to begin supplementing and fortifying their baby formula, because some babies, with DHA. because the developing
Mate,
brain is
what a legendary move. That is so great. That gives me
absolutely,
hope. I'm like, oh my word, like there are good people doing good work out there, you know?
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So,
So
yeah,
for
so
us, so for the non-baby listeners out there, we'll stay focused on the EPA then. Like, how much do we need to take and how do we take it? I know that's pretty basic, but it is the essential series. We're
absolutely, yeah.
looking for
So
the prescription here.
Hugh, it occurs to me. I warned you about this. I knew we were going to go a little bit longer than a half hour today. We are 28 minutes in, and at least if you don't edit the crap out of this, we're 28 minutes in, and we're just now getting to, hey, Dr. Ilardi, tell me what I should do. How can I improve? How can I, maybe address my depression or some of these other mental health challenges with omega 3s? So here we go. 1,000 milligrams per day of EPA is a psychoactive dose. It is the dose that has been most heavily studied and research supported as an antidepressant drug, basically. So, yeah, we don't normally think of food as a drug, but 1,000 milligrams of high quality fish oil, 1,000 milligrams of EPA within high quality fish oil acts like an antidepressant drug. And, there have been roughly 500 published studies of antidepressant medications, 500 of meds, of antidepressant meds. And there have been about 15 high quality published studies of fish oil. Why? Well, there's not as much
It's
money
all
to be
about
made.
that money.
Follow the money, folks. But these 15 high quality studies of of EPA for depression suggest that when you compare the effect to a pill placebo, that's the gold standard, right? You always want to have a clinical control. The effect size, the magnitude of the improvement in depression with omega-3 so far, based on the evidence we have so far, is larger than the magnitude of improvement that we see with medication. And that's pretty extraordinary. Now, there's more evidence that there is a subset of people with depression whose depression is really characterized by high inflammation. And as you might guess, those depressed individuals will have a bigger response on average to the omega-3, right? In other words, the omega-3 is targeting one possible mechanism and driver of depression, but it's not the only one. So, for example, if somebody's depression is being driven by lack of sunlight and their body clock is all wonky and the circadian rhythms are shifted, they have what we would call winter onset or seasonal affective disorder, well, the omega-3 may or may not be very helpful. They may have a much bigger effect to a therapeutic light box, right? So we always want to target the underlying driver or mechanism. It turns out there's a pretty simple blood test for inflammation called C-reactive protein. If folks want to talk to their, or CRP, sometimes we call it, folks want to talk to their doctor and say, hey, can I get a blood test to see if I have high levels of inflammation to know whether or not the omega-3 supplement is more likely to have a really massive impact on my depression, on my anxiety, on my ADHD. But here's what we know. Most people with depression, most people with ADHD, and many people with anxiety are low in their circulating levels of omega-3. So for them, this can be really beneficial.
It's a great thing to look out for. Really great thing. Okay, so 1,000 milligrams a day. You've talked about where to get it from. Something I will kind of just jump in and say is we're not talking about 1,000 milligrams of fish oil. We're talking about 1,000 milligrams of EPA. That's mistake.
Crucial. Yeah,
I
that's
made
a really
the first time. I remember going on Amazon and trying to find some good quality stuff here in Ireland, and that was my first mistake. The really good stuff will actually show you a breakdown on the back. This is how much EPA, this is how much DHA, and you want to make sure that the EPA is over that 1,000 milligram amount. I have seen you, I don't know if it was on the podcast or maybe in one of your books, I have heard you, for some individuals, recommending a higher dose. Is that something you're prepared to mention today, or do you want me to stick a pin in that?
Yeah, I love it. No, we can talk about it. But first, let me just address what you just said about the people who... I've had so many people come up to me after I've given a talk somewhere, or they email me, and the question almost always goes like this. Hey, Dr. Ilardi, I tried fish oil, and I don't think it really made much of a difference.
You're a liar. It sucks.
Well, yeah. And by the way, I mean, that is absolutely 100% expected, right? There are going to be some people that, it's like we want to come at every single disorder, every single form of suffering.
We don't believe in
always,
magic bullets.
We do not. We're going to do.
If you've been listening to the show, you know that. So
we're going to do all the things. We always want to do all the things. But I've had many people say, actually, two biggest complaints. One, the fish oil gave me nasty fishy burps. It's like, oh my God, the nasty fishy burps. What's up with that? And
you know
what's
what
up with
I
that?
hate? I hate my depression. You know what I hate even more? Having fishy breath.
Yeah. Well, the fishy burps and the indigestion that ensues with that is no joke. And it is usually a sign that the person has a low quality fish oil supplement that has gone rancid or semi-rancid. And so when the capsule digests in your stomach acid and it releases the semi-rancid fish oil in your stomach's not very happy about that. And so you're gonna hear about it. It's almost always a sign that you need to upgrade the quality of the product, and we can talk about that in a second. It's possibly a sign that you're allergic to fish oil, but that's pretty rare. You could talk to your doctor about that. But the other complaint I get is, hey, I tried it didn't work, and I always follow up now with the question, well, okay, tell me about like what kind of supplement, what dose, how much we're taking, and very often people will say, oh, well, I just the side of the bottle said serving size 1 capsule, and I remembered you said like in one of your videos or whatever or in your book like 1,000 milligrams of fish oil, and I'm like, okay, well. The typical drugstore grade fish oil supplement, in 1,000 milligrams of fish oil, it'll have 180 milligrams of EPA. And for those who don't love math, that might be a little bit confusing. But basically, only about what are we talking about? 18% of the fish oil is EPA. The rest of it's other kinds of oil, other kinds of fatty acids. So obviously, then. The dose there, the antidepressant dose, the psychoactive dose, would be 6 capsules. So you don't want to listen to whatever they say the serving size is. You want to listen to, okay, if I want to get an antidepressant dose, then I may need to take more than one of these capsules. In fact, I need to keep taking as many as it requires to get. Now, big disclaimer, big caveat.
I was about to do a medical disclaimer.
Here we go.
You're better at it. You go ahead. It rolls off your tongue.
Thank you. Yeah, talk to your healthcare provider, folks. Talk to your doctor. We are not giving medical advice. We are giving education only. So there are some potential side effects of fish oil. The most important one is it acts at higher doses as a mild blood thinner, and for a lot of people that's beneficial. But if you're on a blood thinning medication, or if you have a blood clotting problem clotting, if you are low in platelet count, if you are taking a drug like heparin or warfarin or Coumadin, talk to your doctor, because it can be really dangerous to further thin out your blood with fish oil. Okay, so
for everyone else, what are we saying here? We're just saying take an ungodly amount of tablets every day for the rest of your life.
No. What we're saying, thank you for that. What we're saying is, rule of thumb. We've said this before, but God, I can't believe we're 36 minutes in, and now I'm finally saying this.
Bro, you gotta stop giving the actual numbers, because then they'll know how much we edited.
Yeah, but you're going to edit that out too. This is very meta, so they'll never know.
Keep it in for the solidarity, for transparency, and among the listeners.
Absolutely, we're all in this together, folks. Supplements are meant to be a short-term solution. There are exceptions, but for most of us, I really want to encourage, and I'm preaching to myself here as well, think of a supplement as something to take, like a, break glass in case of emergency. If you're really hurting, if you are deficient in something, if you need a nutrient to basically act like a drug to treat an acute problem in your body, then take a supplement. How long? 3 months, 6 months, tops. And then what? Well, get it from your diet from that point on. Get it from food. How do you get omega-3s from food? Eat cold water, free range fish, fish that are caught in the wild, if you can somehow develop a taste, cultivate a taste for sardines or mackerel or other little tiny sustainably caught fish out in the ocean, God bless you. I've tried so many times. I'm still kind of hanging in there with the sardine. I know.
Steve, come on.
I'm hanging in there with the sardines. I still do it. I have to force myself every time, but it's so good for you. It's like, it's something about the crunch and we're not going to go there. It's a great source of calcium, ladies and gentlemen, because you're actually chewing up fish bones. It's fantastic.
Way to sell it right there at the end. I love
that. That's what I'm here for. So back to your earlier question, Hugh. What happens if you take 1,000 milligrams of EPA and you're still not really getting the effect that you're looking for? Well, it turns out that some people do better at 2,000. So again, conferring with your healthcare provider, you can think about doubling the dose. And I've known many patients who've done better at 2,000 than at 1,000. Now, one last thing I want to say about this is that there are different qualities of fish oil supplement, and there are two main ways that they're processed and packaged. The most common by far is the fish oil is put in a big vat and it's treated with some enzymes that strip the omega-3 molecules away from everything else that's kind of holding them in the oil. And then they are reconstituted with alcohol. And basically, and this is sort of deep organic chemistry, and I just want to give you the TLDR on this, which is that ethyl, you've heard of ethyl alcohol. Ethyl is the backbone of most fish oil supplements, where every ethyl molecule can attach to 5 molecules of EPA or DHA for that matter. And so you can get it very, very dense and compressed and concentrated, so that your 1,000 milligram fish oil capsule, if you do ethyl ester form, you can get up to 500 milligrams of that 1,000 milligrams of EPA. And so it seems like, this is phenomenal. It's like super, super, super high quality, high concentrate.
I'm waiting for the butt. That looks like you're about to give a butt.
I'm about to give a big butt.
I hate big butts and I cannot lie.
Dude, I set you up so well for that. I knew if I pitched a softball over the center of the plate, you're gonna hit it over the fence.
Low hanging fruit. Go ahead.
It was, yeah. The body does not know what to do with this kind of ethyl Frankensteinian sort of concentrated omega-3 concoction. I mean, it kind of does, but basically it's like, well, here's a question. Where does alcohol get processed in your body? In the liver, right? And so a lot of it is going to have to go to your liver first. Not all of it, but a lot of it's going to have to go to your liver first to get processed. And when it's processed, then the EPA is just sort of sitting out there in your bloodstream, and it could get oxidized. It can get basically turned rancid in your bloodstream really quickly, unless you happen to have just consumed a fatty meal so that you've got lots of triglycerides sitting around to give it a ride, basically to pick it up and say, okay, we're going to protect you from the free radicals and all the things that we're going to want to turn you rancid in the blood.
I wish someone would protect me from free radicals.
Yeah, you want to stay away from towns like Berkeley, probably. But by the way, that was not a political commentary at all in any way, shape, or form. I love Berkeley, and I love the people who live there.
Earlier, whenever you talked about reconstituted by alcohol, I was like, there's a lot of people in Ireland who would love that statement on a T-shirt or something.
Absolutely.
Also, ethyl's a common name over here. So when you were talking about ethyl, I was like, had 3 different grannies in my head.
Oh my God. You know what? I have an Aunt Ethel who can also trace her genealogy back to Ireland.
I prefer anti-triglyceride though. She's far superior.
She's got it going on. So here's the deal. If you take a standard fish oil capsule, if you look on the back and it'll say ethyl, hopefully we'll say something, you'll see ethyl ester something to that effect, then you always want to take it with a fatty meal or fatty snack. So even just like a handful of tree nuts or peanuts or something, that's fine. The better option is to take the triglyceride form. Okay, so triglycerides get a bad rap because, when people get their blood lipid panel, if they're looking at their cholesterol level, their good cholesterol, their bad cholesterol, they also typically will look at triglyceride. And if your triglyceride levels are high, that's a risk factor for heart disease. But triglycerides are simply the shuttle for fatty acids throughout the bloodstream to take them up to tissues, including the brain. And so when you eat a piece of, well, say if you consume a sardine and it's got lots of omega-3 EPA, it's in triglyceride form already. So your body knows what to do with it. That's the bottom line. Your body is really, really good at consuming omega-3s in the form of triglyceride. And so that's really what I want to encourage all of you to look for in your fish oil capsule. Because why? The highest quality fish oil capsule will say right there on the bottle, triglyceride form. And I have no financial vested interest in any. I've always tried to stay clear of any potential conflict of interest. But I will tell you the two that I recommend the most, the two brands are Nordic Naturals, and I think they make a phenomenal product, sustainably caught fish oil, and Nutrigold. And Nutrigold is available throughout the UK and I think Nordic Naturals as well. And a little bit more affordable and still very high quality. And it's a little more costly than some of the others, but your body is going to be able to use it so much more efficiently that I'll bet many of you will find, and you can do this experiment if you want, that if even a dose that's lower than 1,000 will still be psychoactive because it's so bioavailable that you might even run the experiment depending on, exactly where you are. Talk to your healthcare provider, but you might even try starting with 500 and see if that's psychoactive, because it may well be for you.
That's awesome. My this idea of like quality over quantity, I guess, kind of encapsulates all of the little last things that I wanted to say at the end of this episode. So,
you got some. Well, we got to introduce the segment, Hugh's Hacks, right?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a new segment on the show. I was looking for a jingle. I don't have one. This is all I have here.
Oh, drum roll's good though.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hugh's Hacks. This is the part of the show that's never been done before and may never be done again, where I give you my actionable, quick little things you can do to put this episode into action based on everything you've heard today. I am someone who has been implementing high omega-3 into my diet for the last 3 years, and these are the perfect tips and tricks that have worked well for me. Ready? Did you like that?
Let's bring it. Oh, that was amazing. that was, I'm in the presence of.
Okay, no.
Not only professional. Yeah. Well, it's. I'm just saying, it's nice to be working with a true professional. So yeah, go ahead, Hugh.
Ready? This is going to take a couple minutes. Okay.
Okay. No, we're here for it.
Buy from your butcher as much as possible. So it's more expensive. I get it. There's a couple of people in my community, us included, that made the decision to buy less meat but buy better meat. And so what that means is we're buying meat that we know, we look the guy dead in the eye. It's like, are your cows grass fed? He's like, yes. We're like, okay, then we'll please give me 1 kilogram of mince in 4 different packets. The second thing, which is kind of the same thing, is support local farms. So we're really fortunate to live near a couple of local dairy farmers who feed all of their cattle grass. And you go to the farm and you see them munching on that green grass. So that means that your milk is going to be way, way, way higher in omega-3. Milk is not a crazy high source of omega-3, but hey, every little helps.
Every little bit helps. Absolutely. Exactly. Yeah. And by the way, I love that you're emphasizing, kind of calling back to a point that was made earlier, which is our ancestors 5, 6, 7 generations ago got a lot of their omega-3s just from their everyday food supply, right? They weren't having to go out of their way to get salmon and mackerel and ocean caught, whatever, or cod. They're just like, I'll have a lamb shank, Mr. Butcher.
Exactly. So, the other bit on that is your eggs. So again, we live in Ireland. The whole island is basically one big farm. But if you can get your eggs, as high quality eggs as you can afford or as you can source, it's an exponential difference between your cheap crappy eggs that you're going to get for a really really budget price. I eat a lot of eggs. I eat them every single day. So the way I see it is, I may as well be getting extra omega-3 into my diet that way, so that I don't have to lean as heavy into supplementations. Next quick little thing is, as much as possible, switch to olive oil and butter. We do a lot of cooking in the pan here, like a lot of cooking. And so olive oil and butter, again, it's grass-fed butter. It just means that I'm not getting all the omega-6s that we talked about earlier, and I'm constantly sneaking little tiny, tiny bits of omega-3 in here that hopefully will add up to that mystical and magical 1,000 milligram, 2,000 milligram,
Love it. Just quick caveat, which
Don't
is
tell me it all gets burned up or something.
No.
Okay.
I mean, olive oil is
yes,
has
there's no omega-3
amazing
in olive oil.
Yeah, right, and it's a lot of omega-6, but it's a type of omega-6 that actually tends to be much healthier and safer. And for anyone with a genetic loading for heart disease, there's some really good evidence now that olive oil, especially as part of a more Mediterranean diet, but just in general, olive oil has protective effects when it, especially as a substitute for some of the other heavily processed oils. By the way, there's another one where quality really matters, and a lot of what is sold as olive oil is not really olive oil. Believe it or not, it's like canola oil or corn oil that's flavored with. Oh yeah. This is a whole big racket. Yeah. Now, I don't know in Ireland, but I can tell you in the States, unless it says extra virgin cold pressed olive oil, there's a very high likelihood that what you're getting is not really pure olive oil. So just,
I'll give you one further. If you go onto a major online retailer that you can buy things from online, you can get like 5-liter and 10-liter massive metal canisters of stuff imported, directly from the hills of the Mediterranean that has like all the anti-aging stuff that all you blues owners out there love. And actually, when you buy it in bulk like that, it's pretty much the same as your store-bought crappy olive oil. It's it's an investment up front, but you get that money back as you go, and it's an investment in your health long term, which will save you lots of money and pain in the future. Now, last little thing, something I always keep with me, not necessarily in my back pocket, because that would be kind of weird. I keep it in my backpack, so in a little flap front bit of my bag, everywhere I go, you will always find 1 or 2 tins of the forbidden, the alluded to earlier mackerel and sardines. Steve's like shaking his head here. These bad boys here, they are an absolute lifesaver. If I'm out and I'm really, really hungry and I can't wait to get home, I can pop one of these open, get a little spoon, shovel it into me. High protein, super, super high on omega-3. And again, if you can price up a little bit and go for high quality, I've no financial relationship with this dude. He's a local guy in Ireland. Company called Shines Seafood. They're up on the coast in Donegal. And on his mackerel and sardines, on the packet, it tells you how much omega-3 and how much EPA is in it. I can't remember about the EPA, but the omega-3 for 1 tin of mackerel was 2,800 milligrams. It's exponentially more than you're going to get from like a 40p for America, 40-cent can of mackerel. But again, you got to do what you got to do, understand cost of living, and you got to make it work. But a little tin, always have it on standby. They make excellent lunches. You can literally just throw a couple of spinach leaves in a box and bring the tin with you. It takes like 2 seconds to make. I'm all for saving time in the morning. I don't like making big lunches, and this is something that kind of hits all of my diet goals when it comes to protein and also the fats and also the omega-3s. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is omega-3 essentials.
No, there's one more thing. The professor always has to add one. So I'm thinking, Hugh, it is possible. No, it is likely that we have at least some listeners who are vegetarian or vegan, and they're like, well, wait a minute, because I've worked with a lot of patients who are like, hey, Dr. Ilardi, I'm completely on board with everything in your therapeutic lifestyle change protocol, except because I'm vegan, I'm not taking fish oil. So what do you got for me? And it's like,
Algae.
well, we do have algae. Here's the thing: most algae supplements are very heavy on DHA, which again you need if you're a baby, if you're an infant, if you're a toddler.
There's like some sort of like ridiculously scientific insult in there. Like, yeah, I bet you need a lot of DHA, don't you?
Yeah, that would work with about 5 people on the planet, I think. So it's really hard to get an adequate dose of EPA from algae. But here's the cool little hack. Remember I mentioned that there is a short chain omega-3 called ALA that you get from plant sources. And the most efficient way that I know of to get it is a type of oil called, here in the States, we call it flaxseed oil. It's sometimes called rapeseed oil, which is a very unfortunate name, I think, in the 21st century. But that
Yeah, in
oil...
the first restaurant I worked in, they used to buy it in by the boxes. And I just remember every time I would go in the back to grab a balloon for like a kid's birthday, and I would just see the boxes, I'd be like, who named this and why did they name it this? Anyway.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate name. So in the States, it's typically branded as flax, FLAX, flaxseed oil. Much better. And here's the cool thing. If you are a vegan, your body has learned over the last, if you've been doing it for a while, over the last couple of years, your body is like, hey, we don't ever see any EPA anymore. We need EPA. Well, we're getting a fair amount of ALA, the short version. We have a conversion pathway in the body, but it's very inefficient. We don't use it very often. For most of us, about 5% of the ALA that we ingest gets converted to EPA. Okay, that's not very efficient. So you'd have to just eat a massive amount of flaxseed to get enough EPA to have an antidepressant effect. But if you're a vegan, your body recognizes the shortage and it's like, oh, we're going to do this cool thing called epigenetic modification. We're going to express the genetic machinery to do the conversion of ALA to EPA. We're going to upregulate it. We're going to get way, 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 way more efficient at it. And guess what? If you're a vegan, you have a superpower of being able to convert ALA to EPA. So what do you need? Basically 1 to 2 tablespoons a day of flaxseed oil. You can also get it, take a look at chia seed, take a look at hemp seed. There are lots of possibilities there in that seed oil or just seed space. For the rest of us, it's not going to be very psychoactive. So I just want to put it out there because, it's once there's an NBA star, there's several NBA stars that have converted to a plant-based diet, and especially older stars, maybe older individuals like me would benefit from considering this. Their bodies often seem to respond well to it. And so it's a pretty trendy, buzzy thing right now. And I just wanted to make sure that those of you who are experimenting in that space, that there's still a really nice omega-3 solution for you.
That's nice. You've prompted one more little hack. Chia seeds on top of your yogurt or on top of your porridge.
Yeah,
delicious.
I love it.
Really nice.
Yeah.
My
They get a
daughter
little...
even eats it and she's like, 2. So
yeah, they get a little bit, I don't even, how would you characterize the consistency?
it's hard to explain. They if they get like wet for a while, they like expand and
they do.
This, like, I don't want to say like gluey kind of like
gluey is,
but that's about as close as I can get. It's nice though. It definitely is.
So ladies and gentlemen, your mileage with these may vary just a little bit. I happen to like it. I've had people look at it and be like, are those little tadpoles down there? Like what's happening? It's kind of glue. Yeah. Anyway, by the way, Hugh, I want to commend you on your very, very subtle shout out to Cypress Hill again, Insane in the Membrane. And we have to do Inflamed in the Membrane. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are generous and kind enough to become patrons of this show, I'm going to promise it right here, right now.
Sometime good segue and bold promise. This is what I like. I like this. Keep going.
sometime in the not too distant future, I'm going to leave it vague and open-ended. In the not too distant future, we will do our best to give a rendering of inflamed in the membrane.
Do you want to do the rap or are you going to do the hook?
I probably should do the hook. I'm going to let you do the rap.
I'm totally down for that. Like,
I know you are. Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait.
So yeah, if you'd like to support the show, thank you so much to everyone who makes this show possible. We're completely crowdfunded. Steve mentioned it earlier. We're not sponsored by Big Food or Big Fish Oil or Big Antidepressant or any of the
or
other
big light box. Not
big light
even
box.
Big light box. Yeah, they came looking for us, and we no. You know what? We're flying solo on this.
Absolutely. So look, if you have the means to do so and you'd like to support us for as much as the price of like a hipster cup of coffee or one of those super elite exclusive craft beer bottles, you can do so over at patreon.com. Just search for us. You can get it on the website as well, which is mentalhealth.fm. The website's also a great place just to reach out and say hello. We love hearing from listeners. We get quite a lot of messages from people like you who listen, and we genuinely love it because it helps us figure out who is listening. What do you want to hear? What sort of content should we put out there next? Because, I'll just be brutal, like as a podcast producer, like you're just like this random little digit on a stat dashboard until you reach out and say hello. So genuinely, please get in touch. We would love to hear from you, love to connect with you. And other than that, just want to say thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode, whether you watched online, on YouTube, or whether you listened on your walk or your workout or whatever it is you're up to on podcasts via Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Steve, thanks for this. It's been super fun.
Hey, thanks you. It's been a blast. As usual, hey, be well, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.
Cheers.